Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. And today, on the 20th of July, 2019, we are starting to look at the finale of the second series of Fourth Doctor Adventures, the final phase, starting with Part 1. Now, the final phase, Part 1, the final phase, well, as an episode, as a story, I'm gonna have to criticize Nicholas Briggs, mainly because it's an episode title that's just generic. It's like, okay, what does this really tell us? That this is like the final episode of the season. Like, now you have some really good ideas here. This episode basically explains Cuthbert's actual plan throughout this arc. Like, what's he doing in the Proxima system? He's basically trying to have. He basically wants to have time travel. This is and potentially the ability to enter different timelines, and it's something that the Daleks want to have as well. They're trying to work with Cuthbert just so they can try to find it. Also, Cuthbert kind of wants to see if he can rewrite history. It's something that he really wants, but something that he can't get. He's been working in the Proxima system, basically so he can try to get this. All right, we've got these, I've got this built up system and built up this entire idea around myself, basically just so I can try to see if I can get this, basically get myself time travel, something really that that makes Cuthbert such a good character. He David Warner does a really good performance. Though sadly, the story itself is kind of weak, to be really brutally honest. As a story, it's one where you really don't get the where what the story is necessarily going for. You really don't see the end here. You have the story going towards a nice big conclusion, but not something that is necessarily proper and a real story. It's just sort of a story that ends like it does. It's you really don't do a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, outside of Cuthbert wanting time travel, you just kind of get you just kind of get a story about, like, oh, there's time travel now, so now that we've got time travel, that's what's going on. We don't have we don't have you know we don't have that much of a solid conclusion for the story. We have basically what becomes a story that's, just sort of, oh, we finished what we wanted to do. That's about it. They didn't there wasn't a lot of interesting stuff. It's pretty much a lot of a bog standard Doctor Who story, not an interesting at all one. It's just kind of standard. Something that really perhaps could have been explored better, and really maybe even just given given a better just a better explanation and a better sense on and a better sense of here's what's going on. It's one of those things where you can't necessarily conclude very, very well. It's a decent story. Mr. Doric is actually steals the show. Toby Haydock is excellent, but overall, it's bland. So overall, I am going to give the Final Phase Part 1 a 6 out of 10. Alright, it is the 22nd of July 2019. Yes, I missed a day. For that, I apologize. Life got in the way on Sunday. With my general craziness. Life went crazy. But finished listening to part 2 of the Final Phase. I have some issues with part 2 of the Final Phase. Mainly that it's one where you really it's not so much is that this is a story that does a good job and continues. More, there's a collection of really good, nice moments here, character pieces. There's this great idea of Cuthbert being responsible for the beginning of the beginning of the Conglomerate, meaning he's basically it's like the Conglomerate exists all because of him, which is interesting idea, but I think that perhaps the biggest issue here is that one of the biggest issues is that this isn't a story where it's actually telling a complete story. It's kind of just telling things done. Like, it's just like having a bunch of different little vignettes of character interactions while our characters interact, they kind of try to give us some sort of quote unquote conclusion, but it doesn't actually conclude. It sort of just falls into the Daleks have to be defeated, and the Doctor defeats them basically by messing with their DNA that he apparently took at a previous point, and not actually doing something, clever. It's just like, oh, this is where the story ends, so this is where we're going with it. It's not really doing a fun, cool sort of plot. It's just sort of ending the story with in sort of the best way that it can in a lot of fanfic. Like, you have this supporting character who dies, and his pupil takes over, and it's like, oh, but they never got to reconnect as characters. It's something like that where you really, you kind of feel like you're missing out on, you're really missing out on some of the nuances and kind of what the story was meant to be like. Like the first moments after the cliffhanger are great because you think the Doctor's dead. You think the Doctor's dead, and Romana gets a chance to kind of grieve. It's very much kind of she sort of grieves and tries to show what he's really trying to do, in it really shows how the relationship has evolved, as characters. Romana obviously now has built up such care and respect for the Doctor that she almost, it's almost like a quote unquote romantic type relationship, in something that really could be great. It's something that I think perhaps needed a bit more of an explanation overall, and maybe a bit more exploration to come with the story. And you have Cuthbert obviously coming back as a villain in later episodes, leaving things open-ended. But overall, it's these nice moments with the cast don't really create a story that you can get the most mileage out of. It's overall it's kind of a just sort of bleh, meh final episode. Like, the Daleks really don't do anything interesting. Like, ladies that they want to try to smash through. They want to try to smash through the different dimensions and create a new dimension to conquer for some reason. It's just kind of an average episode, really only held together by these points of here's a really good bit, and here's a really, really nice scene, but it's really just not the whole being the sum of its parts. Overall, I'm going to give the final phase part 2 a 5 out of 10. And we add up the scores and average them out to give the final phase a final score of 5.5 out of 10. Thank you everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. As always, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Please let me know what you thought of this story. And join me next time when we say hello to the second Romana and Douglas Adams as script editor, as we go back to the premiere episode of Season 17 in Destiny of the Daleks.